So I was wanted to talk to you about what's going on with Galt and
Yeah,
Kuda,
yes.
and how did you learn that they want to restart their project?
I believe I learned it from you. You had sent me a message. I think it had to do with Martin Poirier,
Yeah,
where he had
probably.
translation.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Uh-huh.
where he had translation of what was going on with the Quebec government and Junix and Kuda. And I think there was another article afterward where Martin had put out where it said that they were negotiating with the three communities and MMS. That's how I learned.
Are you surprised that you learned that from us?
Yeah, very surprised because, as you know, our tribal, 7th District Tribal Council was involved with the maybe our camp protesters 2017 and 18. And I thought that after Junix stopped its exploration operations that there were no negotiations going on with anybody. But I learned that the MMS, I think, is involved in some way with these companies, which I intend to find out.
You know what happened exactly with the consultation of the band councils?
That's something I asked the chief at our last council meeting last week, and he confirmed they were talking about this gas exploration or gas drilling in the gas bay, but he also said that because I asked him, do you support that there be gas drilling or exploration, and he said no, which is a good thing. So now we know the Listow's Bank Council does not support that activity.
But Kuda still doing this project that they want to this so-called consultation with the general public and didn't really consult or have a yes from the band councils.
Well, that's not. I'm not sure about that. They may have contacted the Bank Council and MMS, but not our traditional government and the people, so to say. But I made it clear now. I'm in the band council system now. I'm a council member because I got voted in last June, so I know what's going on, and I have influence over this situation now. Not like 2017 and 2018. We were on the outside, the tribal council.
And Mathieu Lavoie did an interview with Télé Gaspé and didn't mention anything about the Mi'kmaq.
Yeah, that's practically a slap in the. That's an insult, slap in the face. Not only with the people here, but I know Gespegawagi, the people are mad because when that happened, there was no mention of the Mi'kmaq whatsoever. I mean, this is our territory they're talking about, ancestral territory.
How the community is reacting.
The community here, I can safely say, they don't want this gas or oil exploration in the Gaspé because we see it as they're going to start there, and they have licenses all throughout our district up to Rimouski. If you look at the map that I found last year or was sent to me, almost all of the territory is licensed out. We're looking at, in Alberta, the oil, the tar sands is shut down. Now they're looking at our territory here. We got an Alberta company that wants to come in, Kuda Energy. And if we don't stop what's going on now, well, later on they're just going to try to extend, And to me, that to us as Mi'kmaq, that's unacceptable. We don't want that.
And they're still ignoring you. You, as Gary Metallic, the chief of the 7th district, and the
Yes,
7th district as a whole.
exactly. Our position remains the same as it was when we supported the environmentalists 2017 and 2018.
The end the works after the blockade and the river camp
Yes,
and your intervention, but now they restart and they ignore. You still
yes,
in your renew, even if you sign a declaration to say that there was a trespassing on your territory.
yes, exactly. Our position remains the same legally too. That even though Quebec issued those licenses to CUDA or Junex, they did so without our consent. And the question of Aboriginal title still remains unsettled. We still have Aboriginal title. It's legally supported, historically supported, in law. And I think what they're trying to do is go around us, get around us. The thing that I don't know is who CUDA and Junex, if they had discussions with the other two communities, Gespegawagi and Gespeg, the chiefs. But as I said, I do know here the chief and our council, majority of council, will not support any oil gas exploration or drilling.
And you've been talking about sovereignty and about doing a declaration, an assertion of your sovereignty.
Yes, we remember I had shared that in 2017 and 18, the declaration, basically that presents the arguments that this is still our ancestral territory. It's never been given up. It's never been sold to government, any government, Canada or the British Crown. And the only way, I think, as I said before, to stop these companies from trying to drill and extract these oil or gases is to use that as the big stick. Because if we look at what's happening in British Columbia with Wet'suwet'en and nation over there, what they did was these companies in Canada negotiated with the band councils, 25 band councils, but they didn't include the hereditary systems like ours. And by doing that, they thought that they could go ahead with the pipeline, but they forgot one thing: Aboriginal title lies with the ancestral hereditary systems, and those are recognized in the Supreme Court of Canada as far back as 1993. So that fight is not over yet. The BC, they're going to be going to the courts on who the original title holders are, the band councils or the original hereditary life systems. So that's what we want to do here, because if we don't do that, they just continue on with their what you call great fraud, that they created.
How do you feel yourself as a Mi'kmaq and a Mi'kmaq of the 7th District can approach that?
On this title or the whole trying to stop?
Both, I think.
Yeah. Well, we're at the end of the road. We're at the crossroads here where, blockades is good, protests are good, but it's a pattern that's been seen over the last 2-3 decades. You set up your your camps or your blockades. The company will go to the courts and get their orders to dismantle. The court issues the order to the provincial police or the RCMP, and the RCMP go in, dismantle it, arrest people. It's just a vicious cycle, and we keep playing, with their rules. We will never get the real question of who owns the key is that who owns this territory. Quebec knows by law it doesn't own it. There's certain things that happened in 1763 and so forth that still validate that we own, but the question has never been brought to the court.
And also at that time, the Band Council wasn't existing.
Band Council never existed until 1876. All the treaties were signed by the traditional hereditary systems, the chiefs, even here, especially here in the 5 provinces which the Mi'kmaq territory encompasses. the maritime provinces in Quebec. It was the chiefs that signed all those treaties, the peace and friendship treaties. So how can they exclude us in having to say what happened in our territory?
As settlers, what do you think we can do?
I think as settlers, and I have said it before during 2017 and 18, we're all in the same boat on this issue. Do we, do we love our children? And if we do, how do we make this a better world for them versus what's happening now? You know what the fossil fuel burning hydrocarbons has been doing. It's been proven scientifically that if we don't stop, this could result in the end of civilization. I mean, it's happening now. Look, the weather. For instance, last year, the weather was the warmest in its history, and here in the province of Quebec, how many people died? I think about 70 people died. Now, doesn't that raise any concerns or ring alarm bells? And it's getting worse. The scientists have told us time and time again.
And about
So,
approaching on an active way, what do you feel we can do
about the, I'm sorry?
against the project of CUDA and also about respecting your sovereignty as people?
Well, I think it's time for us to unite settlers, newcomers and the Mi'kmaq people, and join forces and plan a strategy, a strong strategy, which is, I believe, would be like an injunction to stop them, to stop them from what they're trying to do. And the whole question of who owns the territory is the key until such time. But in our declaration that we put forward last year from Bruce Clark, who was our legal scholar advisor, we included the wording on coexistence, with the settlers. Just because if we win Aboriginal title, it doesn't mean everybody is chased off their houses and their properties. No, it's not going to happen like that. We've coexisted for over 500 years. We've shared the resource, hunting, whether it's hunting or whatever, harvesting natural resources. So that's not going to change. The only thing that's going to change is we're going to have another government that will not cater to the oil and gas and mining and all these other companies that are poisoning and raping our resources. That's the thing that's going to change.
But do you think this kind of government can exist?
Of course it can exist. I mean, it exists now. I mean, take an example. Our 7th District Tribal Council was revised after centuries of being underground because of the John A. Macdonald policy of termination, and eradication of our systems. But we're still alive. And in 1997, we were validated in the Supreme Court of Canada when we intervened in the Quebec secession case. They tried to argue that we were not a legitimate governing system, and the Supreme Court ruled no. They basically said Indians had to have their governments before the Europeans arrived. Their system, their own governing systems, and we did. So it's not a question of can we have such a government exist? It exists now, and the example is our system. We've gone through the courts, also the superior courts, on a land claim settlement that we fought here next to the reserve, and we won.
I was more thinking about like a government asset, like a settler government will not allow those things to happen. Do you think that can exist?
Well, the difference between the settler government and our government is the settler government doesn't have Aboriginal title. And in order to prove that, the criteria from the Supreme Court is you have to prove hundreds of years ago that you used the territory, you occupied it, and your people lived on it. So the settlers, which, it's a recorded history, only came here when Jacques Cartier arrived in Gaspésie. But it's not to say that, and the key is this, the coexistence can't exist. Together, the Mi'kmaq as the title owners, in which we are today anyways. It's just a matter of having it brought to the court. We will win that argument because in 2014, as you know, the British Columbia nation, Sikotlan nation, won Aboriginal title in their territory, thousands of square kilometers. And now they have say on what can happen, especially when it comes to oil, gas, and mining. They can veto. But the same thing can happen here. That's already a model that's there. It's out there, but it has to be activated, in the court system.
How do you feel about like the approach of the environmental movement in so-called Gaspésie toward yourself, but yourself as Gary Metallic, but yourself as the 7th District?
Well, based on the experience we shared together in 2017 and 2018, it was a good relationship, and I think by forming that relationship, I guess we made ourselves stronger. When you look at the example, when they arrested Freddie Stony Point, and when the issue came to court, they wanted to charge him for trespassing, but we wrote a letter to the government saying, no, he wasn't trespassing. He was invited by our district government. So that neutralized or took away from their charges of trespassing. Then they knew that if they went ahead with it, well, we would have ended up in court to testify. That's the 7th District Tribal Council saying that no, he was there at our invitation. Also, the non-native settlers that were there at the Riviera camp. And they didn't want that because that would have opened up a whole constitutional question that we want to present in the court.
How do you feel about this announcement that they want to do a consultation about extracting at the other Galt project?
I don't, as I said before, we don't want any exploration. We don't want any drilling, period. Leave the Gaspésie, our territory, alone. It's been pointed out by environmentalists and scientific people that the Gaspésie is the jewel of the peninsula. I mean, we look at the resources that we have: the salmon, the wildlife, and the rivers, the water. I mean, do we want to toss the dice, roll the dice, and allow this exploration and drilling to happen, and only to find out we have a major environmental disaster, an oil spill or a trade spill if they start shipping their oil back to the refineries by rail? All those rails run through communities, close to the communities, through salmon rivers up to Matapedia. We can't take that chance.
Why having consultation if we're opposed to?
Well, that's the thing. But you know why they're having them, Christian, is that in the Supreme Court ruling, I forget when, I think it was 93, that consultation was created by the Supreme Court. But when they created that, it was more for the companies to use. And during that time when they started using them up in BC and the western part, they said, oh, we consulted, but they never consulted with the natives. And they start their projects. Only later on, when the natives started filing lawsuits in the courts, it was found that the companies never followed that consultation procedure. And then they were told, oh, you got to stop. You got to redo your consultations. But when I said the Supreme Court founded that consultation, we believe, as the 7th District Tribal Council, and according to Bruce Clark's legal historical arguments, they took away our veto that was in the 1763 Royal Proclamation, which meant that as title holders, we had the veto. But then that changed after 1993, and this mere duty for companies to consult with our people was a farce. Until now, they're starting to realize, like Trudeau, when the other pipeline was stopped last year, when the court said no, you didn't do the right thing. They're only starting to realize that consultation is a duty. It's not something that was to be ignored like a checkoff list. Oh, yeah, we did it. Okay, we're going to go ahead. No, And when they do these consultations, the important thing is, like you were saying, they do them, but they don't listen to the people. You know, a million people here can say no, and then they turn, oh yeah, we did the consultations, but we're going to begin drilling next week. So that's not consultation. It's only a checkoff list that they have to do.
Before we end this conversation, do you want to add something?
The only thing I would say is, no, we have to maintain that alliance that was formed between us, 2017 and 2018. And I'm hoping that the alliance is larger and gets bigger than what we had back then. But I'm seeing the signs that it is growing, because I can say that on behalf of our chief and council in this community, we are not supporting any exploration or drilling. I can say that because I asked that question last week. As for the other two communities, we don't know what what they've been talking with these companies. We don't know if they're doing revenue agreements again, like they were doing in 17, 2000, no, even prior to 2017. They were doing them 2014, 15. And but that would be unacceptable to us.
And how do you feel we can work more closely as settlers and Mi'kmaq, or Mi'kmaq and settlers?
Well, this is what's going to happen, right? Mi'kmaq and non-settlers. Whatever that has to take place, however we can help on our part as the Mi'kmaq, not only the traditional tribal council, but also the band council and the people. I think our people are ready here in Gespegawagi. They're ready to join forces with the non-settlers in whatever we have to do.
Good. So we'll keep contact.
Yeah, for
Thank
sure.
you. Well,
Thank you
Ali,
for